This week's video, looking for big old mossy trees, has been brought to you by Squarespace. Good morning, everybody. It absolutely poured with rain last night, and it is starting to clear up now. A bit of a change of plan, as is often the case with these trips that I go on. I decided to spend the night in Nitnat Lake. Nitnat Lake is just over here. I'm going to go and check out the big old mossy tree that I photographed some weeks ago. If you haven't seen that video, I'll leave a link up here. I think that it will be quite different right now because of all the fresh greenery. So I'm going to check it out. I don't know if I'll take any images, we'll see. And then I'm going to drive back to where I was yesterday with the branches moving in like this and see if I can get some more shots in there. If the light hasn't changed, then there's not much point in trying to get more images of the same thing. I'm hoping that there'll be a little bit of backlighting on those trees, but we'll have to wait and see. So I'm just gonna have some breakfast and then drive down the road and go and check out that big old mossy maple. Wow, it looks so different with the ferns coming out and all the greenery. I think I do like it better in the spring. I haven't been here in the fall, so I should really follow up on this. If I have time, I'll come out here in the autumn and try and get another shot of this and, you know, compare the differences. This is really a spectacular tree. I'm sure that one day I'm going to come in here and the whole thing's been blown over or limbs have blown off or something. That's usually the case with a lot of trees that I've visited over the years. They're starting to fall down, limbs fall off. I mean, the whole landscape changes. It's amazing how much it does change, actually. Right, I'm going to see if I can find a different composition than last time, but I suspect that I'll probably end up going to the same spot because that was a really nice composition that I got last time. I really like that. So I know in the past I've had a hard time finding good spots for this tree. I still have the same problem as last time. The closer I get, the more you're looking up at it, and as spectacular as it is, you start to include a lot of sky, and right now it's just bland white cloud skies. So I have tried over there. Maybe I'll have a look over there again to my right, see if I can find something over there. But the foliage really does help. The sword ferns are just starting to come out, but the old ferns, they've kind of perked up a little bit from last year, so they don't look too bad. Right, let's see if we can find a composition, and then I'll go over it with you. All right. Have you been thinking about putting together a website to showcase your photography but lack the skills to put one together? Squarespace have taken all of the mystery out of constructing a beautiful website with their award-winning templates that will dazzle your audience. If you've been longing to have a simple, elegant, customizable website, then now's the time to go over to squarespace.com for a free trial. Enjoy the trial, enter the code AdamGibbs for 10% off your first purchase. That's right, enter the code AdamGibbs for 10% off your first purchase. I've looked around and I am having a hard time coming up with something different than last time I was here. So what I've done is I've found something that's a little bit different. It's more of a pano, but it includes the same trees as before. And actually I just noticed the sky starting to clear up, so I better move fast before it gets too sunny. But yeah, it's difficult. It's funny how we tend to get drawn to the same spots over and over again. And I do try to challenge myself to try and take something different than last time, but it is difficult. I went over to the other side of the tree and I couldn't see anything that I really liked. And I tried a bunch of other different trees that I could perhaps use in the foreground, but it just doesn't work. I even slapped on a wide angle lens, which I hardly ever use. But it just doesn't work. The problem is you're shooting up more than straight across. So anyway, we'll give this pano a go. The light is changing really fast, so I better get a move on, or I won't be getting anything. I know I keep touting the benefits of a tall tripod, but they really do come in handy situations like this when you want to try and get the tripod as high as possible so you're not pointing the camera up and pointing at that sky. Now I am including a little bit of the sky, which might not be a problem, but I'm actually planning more of a pano than a regular format. So basically what I've done is I've more or less taken the same shot as before, except that I've included a couple more trees. I'm just going to have it as a pano. So I have, there's a couple of Sitka spruce in the foreground and then a couple of deciduous trees. And I have those somewhat framing the big leaf maple in the background. The light is getting to be a little bit of a challenge. It's funny, it was just pouring rain a minute ago and now it's almost clear as a bell. So I want to try and get a couple more shots in the bag before I head back to the Mossy maple grove. All right, hopefully this is in focus here. Now, of course, the light is not great right now. It's a little bit too contrasty, but as you can see, I've tried to include part of the Sitka spruce here to frame the rest of the shot. And then I have another deciduous tree in the background here, a little thin one. I would have preferred it not there at all, but you kind of have to put it in there because I'm definitely not going to cut it down. so we have that little thin conifer or deciduous. Oh, it's a deciduous tree, and then another Sitka spruce, and then another couple of deciduous trees here. And what I've tried to do is make sure that all of them are separated from one another, and I do that a lot in my forest photography. I try to separate the trees as much as possible so that they're not blending in with one another. Because even though we know when we're standing there that they're separate, when you have a two-dimensional image, especially with no light in the foreground, it's really hard to tell which trees are which and if they're blending, or so you have to try and keep that in mind. And the whole idea is just to frame the gnarly tree in the background. Now you'll notice that it's blinking up here, that's the sky. So I just have to include some of it, but I'm probably going to crop this, as I said, to a pano So crop the bottom off and then crop some of the top off as well. Well, that just goes to show, don't give up on the light. It's clouded over again. I'm glad I didn't leave because I only got that one shot and I really wanted to spend a little bit more time exploring this area. I haven't come up with anything really different, but what I am doing is just taking a straight on shot of the tree itself. I mean, it has such a beautiful shape to it. Now that was the only problem with the Fuji system that I'm using, the GFX 50R, is that the lenses that I have, and I don't think they have anything in between. So right now I have a 32 to 64, which is a great lens, but then the next size up is a 1 to 200, and it would almost be nice to have something in between the 64 and the 100. Right now, I'm using the 32 to 64 and I'm just a little bit too close with the at 64. If I put the 1 to 200 on, I back up, but then even at 100, it's too much. Ideally, you know, I'd want to be around the 80 millimeter or 75. I want to back up a little bit so I'm not including that sky again. So this shot here, I love the composition, I just love the shape of the tree, but I am including some of that sky, so I'm going to have to do something with that in post-processing. It's just a big white blob, which is not ideal. What I really love about this scene is there's a tree behind that keeps catching some beautiful light, and I think it really gives it a little bit of depth. The actual main tree is somewhat in the shade, or this side of it is in the shade, but the background, now and then you'll get a bit of directional light on it, so it's just beautiful. And of course the green ferns coming up and the foliage really do help a lot. As you can see in this shot, I just couldn't get rid of that sky, and it really is quite distracting. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't matter how many exposures you take, when you have no detail in the sky whatsoever, you just can't blend detail back into something that isn't there. Now, in many cases, if there's just pinpoints of sky showing through a shot like this, I'll just clone them out, but in this case, the area is just too large. So what I ended up doing was putting on my 1 to 200 millimeter again, and I just backed up as far as I could and tried to get a composition that was similar to this. I really loved those trees in the background, and that's what I was trying to include in the frame, but with the 1 to 200 I just couldn't do that because there were other trees in the way. So it's all about compromises, but ultimately I much prefer this image over the first one just because of that distracting sky. All right, so I've put on my 1 to 200 millimeter 5.6, and I'm just zeroing in on all of those gnarly branches. It's pretty busy, but I think it works. I kind of like it. It's just more of a pattern shot. I'm not including any of the sky or the base of the tree, just the limbs and the trees in the background and the leaves, and I really quite like that. I'll show you what I have on the back of my camera, and perhaps we can make sense of it all. All right, so this is the composition I have. As you can see, it's quite busy. What I'm not really sure about is whether I should be including the whole of the trunk here. I might just zero in with another shot of just the branches going out horizontally rather than this vertical one. I guess I could always crop this. The reason why I'm so low, I've got my tripod low, is because I didn't want these two branches here, this one and this one, merging with one another. Again, it's all about trying to separate those branches so that even though it's a confusing scene, it makes it less confusing and you don't get too many branches merging. There's another one in here that that kind of points downwards, and it is merging a little bit with that diagonal limb there. So I might try and move over just to the right, just a little bit, so that it's more separated. But I really love these limbs all kind of pointing downwards. And then of course we have the one that's lit in the background, which is quite nice. Now, for those of you that are wondering if I did go back to those gnarly trees pointing in at one another, I did go back and the light was a little bit better. I had a bit of backlighting hitting some of those leaves, so it did give it some separation. Ideally though, it would be nice to have some fog or atmospheric haze in the background to really separate those two elements. So I haven't given up. I will be going back at some point and to give it another try. It's a good experiment to see how light affects the scene and what effects really improve a scene. So stay tuned for that. All right, folks, thanks ever so much for watching this week's video. Please be sure to give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And until next time, bye-bye.